Boy, we spent a lot of time talking about David Johnston, but more so perhaps yesterday after his testimony and some of the strange things that came out of that testimony, including, I think it's fair to say at one point, David Johnston contradicting himself. Mm-hmm. Robert Fife, who, of course, has been on the story since the get-go. He is the Ottawa bureau chief of the Globe and Mail, is on the line. Mr. Fife, thanks again for your time.
You're welcome.
I don't want to ask you what you thought of the testimony, but I will ask you what you thought of the part. And Tom Moncare, by the way, who said to say hi, pointed out this. He said that in his testimony yesterday, David Johnston actually said that there was no case in which the government didn't act when they found out that something had happened. Then, of course, he found out about Aaron O'Toole, and it's hard to believe that the government would not have acted there. What did you think of that?
Yeah, look, what Mr. Johnston said yesterday has blown, in my mind, a big hole in the credibility of his report, because he said in his report that there was not an orchestrated attempt by China to go after the Conservatives party through misinformation or disinformation campaigns. But that's not what Aaron O'Toole told the House of Commons. He had a briefing after the report was tabled, and he said that CSIS told him, and we understand from Mr. Johnston that it was the CSIS director, David Vigneault, who told Mr. O'Toole that, in fact, there was an orchestrated campaign by China both to suppress the vote and to launch a disinformation campaign against the Conservative Party, several members, including himself, and it was orchestrated by China. And when he was asked about that by the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, yesterday, he said, well, I was only going on the evidence that I had, or intelligence that I had, when I did my report. There's now, clearly, there's a big gap between what I said and what Mr. O'Toole has said. And, in fact, there is. Mr. O'Toole is not making that up. He was told this by CSIS, and he's a pretty credible guy. So there's a real problem here with Mr. Johnston's report.
So we're going from someone who said at the outset he had all the information to now admitting apparently he didn't have all the information.
Well, and then now he's saying also yesterday, well, I didn't see everything. I saw a lot of documents, but it was an ocean. I got a big lake of documents, and I only had 8 weeks to pull this together. So yeah, maybe I didn't have everything. So if this thing is starting to unravel. Mm-hmm.
It is. And with regards to what Mr. Johnston is seeing and what he isn't seeing, he seems to have some blind spots, some pretty serious blind spots regarding his own potential impartiality, but then also about Toronto lawyer Sheila Block. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Look, Mr. Johnston has chosen as his lead counsel, which is basically the top aide who would be seeing all this intelligence and helping him draft the report, a lawyer who, for all of her many qualifications, has exclusively contributed federally money to the Liberal Party of Canada since 2006, if not before then. And she also, we reported this week, attended a private virtual fundraiser with the Prime Minister in March of 2021. So this is not a person who, she's a Liberal. And you've asked a Liberal to help you as your lead investigator, investigating the Prime Minister and how he responded to intelligence reports on Chinese interference in the Canadian electoral process. I mean, in any other situation, this person would not be allowed to do so. It's not. The credibility of the report is undermined when you have somebody who is an out-and-out Liberal being the lead counsel and helping you draft a report on the Liberal government.
It seems almost, I hate to say it this way, like a comedy of errors. There have been so many dropped balls, so many flubs in this one, including, Mr. Fife, the fact that David Johnston yesterday said he learned he'd never reached out to MP Han Dong before clearing him in that foreign interference report. How do you clear somebody without having found out the details of that first?
Again, that's mind-boggling because, CSIS did raise some very serious allegations about Mr. Dong, his connections to the Chinese consulate in Toronto, and their activities in helping to get him elected in 2019. Now, he says in his report, well, there's no evidence that he necessarily knew about this. Well, wouldn't you have called him up and said, we'd like to talk to you? Because there's a lot of evidence in these CSIS files about you. And but he said he didn't do that because, well, he was preoccupied with a lawsuit against global news involving a conversation with the Chinese consul general on whether he suggested that the Michael should be kept for extended period of time in jail until the election was over, because releasing him might help the Conservative Party. He said that allegation was false, but the stuff dealing with the allegations of China doing everything they could to help get him elected surely would have required you to say, what did you know about this? And to ask him some serious questions about this.
I feel
straightforward.
I'm going to ask the most ridiculous question possible, but what the heck is going on here? How has this happened? How has it gotten to this? I'm utterly baffled by this whole situation.
I think we're all baffled by it. Mr. Johnston has this idea, that he's this great Canadian who has been a Governor General and has undertaken. He's the head of 2 universities, and he has made a great contribution to Canada. But he is blinded, it seems to me, by his own sense of his self-worth. And he cannot see that his friendship with the Trudeau family, going back to the time when Justin was, 7 years old or more, and through the over his membership in the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, and the fact that this conflicts were brought out, he said he had asked former Supreme Court Justice Frank Akabuchi to say was he in a conflict of interest in being a member of the Trudeau Foundation and having this role as a special rapporteur. Now, and then he admits yesterday in the committee that, well, he and Frank Akabuchi were friends since they were 25 years old. And he was also, by the way, a Trudeau mentor, Mr. Akabuchi. So how in the world can you think that is objective? No. And then you hire a Liberal as your lead counsel.
Yeah.
This simply has no credibility. Mm-hmm. But the larger problems I have with his report is he simply accepts the word of the government. When he says the Prime Minister, did you know about any of this? Did you take this stuff seriously? Prime Minister says, of course I did. That's the problem with this kind of a special rapporteur role. If you had a public inquiry with full subpoena powers and the ability to cross-examine witnesses who would have to be sworn under oath, including right up to the Prime Minister, you would actually get to the truth on whether or not the government knew about any of this and just turned a blind eye.
I'm afraid we have to leave it at that. Mr. Fife, thanks again. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Robert
Bye-bye.
Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief of the Globe.
What a shame. I find we just keep saying the same things over and over again. What a shame. And again, a man who did have an important place in Canadian history will not be remembered the same with the same respect, the same. That
legacy has taken a sharp left turn, I think, on this whole matter. So, and I don't know, and nobody knows where this ends. I was going to ask, we had no time, whether in fact. So at the end of all this, because it's turned into the debacle that it is, do we get a public inquiry? Is that what's going to happen?
Does Johnston step down? Yeah. Is there an apology from the Prime Minister?
We shall have to wait and see.